you think I look like I'm from Sacramento?
Hey guys, so the opening scenes of Lady Bird really set up for who the character is supposed to be and their dynamics with their mother. So let's take a closer look at what this means to the story as a whole, frame by frame. So the scene opens up with a few seconds of silence, which is then interrupted by Lady Bird saying,
Do you think I look like I'm from Sacramento?
This nicely transitions over to the next scene where you see a divide between the characters. And now looking from the first to the next scene, Greta Gerwig does a really great job with blocking and addressing what these characters mean to each other using specific physical differences. So in the first scene, you can see Lady Bird and her mother very close together, and this is then changed to Lady Bird and her mother more far apart. Lady Bird is standing and her mother is kneeling down. There's a change in dynamic as well. You can see Lady Bird is also looking away, and there's a further distance between them, and the following dialogue is also said.
You are from Sacramento.
You don't have to do that.
Lady Bird says you don't have to do that, which could be taken into multiple connotations. The first one being at face value, which is her mother actually folding the sheets, which represents who the characters are. Her mother likes things clean and tidy and believes it's respectful. It shows who the character is, whereas with Lady Bird, she doesn't find that useful to do, and so it shows more of her character. But then it also refers to the earlier dialogue said where Lady Bird asked her mother if she looks like she's from Sacramento, which then her mother replies to saying, you are from Sacramento. So Lady Bird saying you don't have to do that could also refer to her mom saying she is from Sacramento, that form of dialogue, almost confirming that point of view that Lady Bird has. And we see this first scene of blocking where her mother and her are very close together. It shows their level of connection, and you can tell that Lady Bird values her opinions, and so by her saying that she does look from Sacramento, which we also get an understanding that she doesn't want to be connected that way, is also a representation of her saying, you don't have to tell me that I look from Sacramento, and she wanted a different response from her. And so her mother following up by saying that it's nice to make things neat and clean is her way of referring to saying that Sacramento is neat and clean, that she should stay here and this is where she belongs, whereas Lady Bird wants the opposite. And so this form of dialogue and this blocking creates two different scenes at once, and it really sets up what's going to be going into the car ride scene. And just before they enter that, Lady Bird has a piece of dialogue when she says,
You ready to go home?
Ready?
By simply saying, it shows her character with the more simple, unorthodox dialogue. And of course, all dialogue in film will never really be replicated in real life. Film dialogue is written with intention. Real life dialogue is said in the moment. But I believe that this specific line, or this specific word where Lady Bird simply says, ready, attests more to her character of being more unorthodox. This is then followed up by the amazing car scene.
Her hand moved behind his head and supported it. Her fingers moved.
So we start off with a similar scene establishing the daughter and mother in this box. The scene also opens up where the mother looks at the daughter and the daughter looks at the mother, but never at once. And I believe this is done intentionally. It's showing their level of compassion to each other, but not at the same level that they understand each other. And then when we go through the scene after this, which is followed by the audiobook ending, which is what they bond over, Lady Bird goes on to put a song which her mother says,
Hey, wait, let's just sit with what we heard.
Are you serious?
This is then followed by Lady Bird and her mother actually making eye contact and physically establishing a conflict between them. We then start getting close-up shots of both characters as they exchange dialogue, with Lady Bird starting with,
I wish I could live through something.
So there's great pieces of dialogue and blocking that go into creating conflict in the scene. The first one we see when Lady Bird and her mom start from being closer on the bed to further away. The second one, they make eye contact. And now thirdly, when her mother states that,
Okay, fine. Well, yours is the worst life of all, so you win.
Oh, so now you're mad.
and so in this moment, the car also takes a turn. And it's this small difference in the scene which creates a big impact on the environment. So far into the scene, the car's been going completely straight, and in this split second where the conflict arises, the mother also takes a turn, establishing a change in the ambiance. Now, there's no specific change in the background or the foreground. There isn't any crazy music changes. Simply by taking a turn, the scene changes in its tempo. And by making it such a subtle change, it feels embedded into the conflict as a whole, and it doesn't feel external. This is then followed up by the characters overlapping each other in an argument, which then the mother breaks up by saying,
That. I want to go where culture is, like
How
New
in the
York,
world did I raise such a
or at least
snob?
Connecticut or New Hampshire,
Well,
where
you
writers
couldn't
live in the
get into
woods.
those schools anyway.
This is the specific breaking point in the mantra, which then causes Lady Bird to jump out of the car.
Expect everybody to do everything.
So throughout this opening scene, there's a box environment, which in the mother and the daughter are. And now Lady Bird can only go closer or away from her mother within that box. And to actually go away, she has to physically move out of the box. And this can be seen in the metaphor for her escaping California. This whole conversation is built on that. She wants to escape Sacramento and go somewhere northeast like New York. And at some point, even with all her relations at California, she needs to physically detach herself to actually move on and go somewhere new. And we can see the difference from the start of the film to the end of the film of the character doing this in both ways, to actually finally going to New York in the end, to in the start of the movie doing it in an abrupt, more harsh manner. And it's actually a pretty cool character transition to see. Taking a step back and looking at the film as a whole, it's one of my favorites and it does a great job in depicting its story.